Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today is 82.8 degrees, with a low of 61.4, so expect a pleasant fall day with mild temperatures throughout. Coming up, we'll examine the reasons behind President Trump's promise to defend Qatar in the wake of an Israeli airstrike, and explore what's causing California's coastal bluffs to crumble beneath high-end homes, putting lives and properties at risk. Plus, other key stories from around the world. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning, everyone. We're starting today with a major development in U.S. foreign policy that's got everyone talking about alliances in the Middle East. President Trump has issued an executive order pledging to defend Qatar, and it stems from a shocking Israeli airstrike on Doha's soil just weeks ago. Joining me now is our foreign affairs reporter, Ethan, to break it all down. Ethan, this sounds like a bold move by the president.
Absolutely, Grace. Signed just 3 days ago on September 29, 2025, the order titled Assuring the Security of the State of Qatar commits the U.S. to protect Qatar from external threats, even with military action if needed. It was made public yesterday on the White House website, and according to reporting from ABC News via Associated Press correspondent John Gambrell in Dubai, it's a huge escalation in our ties with this Gulf ally.
Escalation is right. Let's go back to what sparked this. That Israeli airstrike on Doha happened 23 days ago, on September 9th. What exactly went down there?
It was a surprise attack at 3:46 p.m. local time in Doha's fancy Lattaifi district, targeting a Qatari government residential complex. Israel aimed at Hamas leaders meeting to discuss a U.S. proposed ceasefire for the Gaza war, as Al Jazeera and the Times of Israel reported. The Israeli Defense Forces called it a response to a Hamas-linked shooting in Jerusalem the day before, going after senior figures like Khalil al-Hayya and Khalid Mashal. But it was a real intelligence flop, per Israel's Shin Bet agency, with primary targets escaping while 5 lower-ranking Hamas members died, including Himam al-Hayya, son of a top leader, and Jihad Labad, head of his office, plus 3 associates.
Tragic losses on the Qatari side too, I understand.
Yes, devastating. It killed Lance Corporal Badr Saad Mohammed al-Humaydi al-Dosari, a Qatari internal security force officer on guard duty, and injured others, as Qatar's Ministry of Interior confirmed. Qatar slammed it as cowardly state terrorism and a sovereignty violation, per their foreign ministry statements in Arab News and Al Jazeera. Hamas called it a heinous crime that killed the whole negotiation process, since Qatar's been key in mediating the Israel-Hamas conflict.
And the international fallout? The United Nations got involved quickly.
For sure. UN Under-Secretary General Rosemary DiCarlo told the Security Council 21 days ago on September 11th that it was an alarming escalation, risking a perilous new chapter. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and human rights experts condemned it 15 days ago on September 17th as a flagrant violation of Qatar's sovereignty, the UN Charter, and the right to life, according to UN.org and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Even Singapore's foreign ministry labeled it a blatant violation 10 days ago, and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called it criminal in Arab News. Jordan and the UAE stood with Qatar per The National in the UAE.
U.S. reaction must have been tense, especially with Al Udeid Air Base there, our biggest Middle East military hub.
Spot on, Grace. It's home to U.S. Central Command's forward headquarters, so striking diplomatic safe havens hit close to home, pun intended on that base. An American official told CBS News Israel gave advance notice to Washington, but our military was blindsided. Lieutenant General Derek France of U.S. Air Forces Central said in breaking defense that detection systems spotted it, but from an odd direction, eyes fixed on Iran instead. President Trump expressed regret publicly, saying he felt very badly and another such attack would not happen on their soil, according to the Times of Israel. Experts at the Carnegie Endowment note it undermines Qatar's mediation role and exposes Gulf security gaps.
Now, diving into the executive order itself, how does it work legally?
The full text on whitehouse.gov vows to guarantee Qatar's security and territorial integrity, treating any armed attack as a threat to U.S. peace. It promises diplomatic, economic, and if needed military measures, echoing NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Pact, even though Qatar's not in NATO, as Defense News highlighted with AP reporting by John Gambrell. Trump signed it the same day Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the White House, after a trilateral call with Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, where Netanyahu apologized for the sovereignty breach and pledged no repeats, per White House readouts in PBS.org and CBS News. Trump also called Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani yesterday to discuss ceasefire efforts, via Al Jazeera. Legally, it leans on presidential powers as commander-in-chief, building on Biden's 2022 major non-NATO ally status for Qatar, which boosted military ties but lacked full defense guarantees, per Just Security and the Middle East Institute. It's an executive agreement, like Obama's Iran deal, no Senate needed, but critics in The Guardian and Semaphore say this NATO-like pledge to an Arab nation stretches authority without ratification, potentially inviting war powers challenges.
Any congressional pushback yet?
As of this morning, no specific actions like notifications or lawsuits on Congress.gov per the Epoch Times and Yahoo News. But it stirs broader worries, like Democrats citing Trump's May acceptance of a $400 million Qatari jet under the Emoluments Clause. Military leaders privately call the strategy myopic, according to Sofrep.com, fearing overcommitment.
Qatar's importance can't be overstated, with its gas wealth and our base there.
Right, a key ally for decades, hosting operations and aiding hostage releases. Personal Trump ties include his organization's projects there and their Air Force One offer, as ABC News and NBC 16 noted. Qatar's foreign ministry welcomed it as strengthening defense partnership. Al Jazeera hailing it as security guarantee post-attack.
Reactions pouring in, from Netanyahu's compelled apology to U.S. critics.
Netanyahu reiterated regret, focusing on Hamas, not Qatar, per the Times of Israel and Al Arabiya. Gulf states feel reassured. Saudi Arabia even signed a defense pact with Pakistan for nuclear cover, in Defense News and Arab News. Kuwait professor Bader Al-Saif told AP via ABC News that Gulf centrality needs real U.S. guarantees beyond apologies and dinners. Here at home, Trump supporter Laura Loomer posted on X, quote, "I do not want to die for Qatar, do you?" End quote. The Wall Street Journal editorial board questioned the lack of debate, calling it out of the blue, while NBC 16 and CBS News highlight suspicions over Qatar's Hamas links and rights issues.
Broader implications for Trump's Gaza plan and U.S. entanglements seem huge.
Yes, it spotlights tensions between allies Israel and Qatar, doubting our security promises. Gulf states might seek similar pacts, per Klingendale Institute and Carnegie reports. Outlets like the Hindu, Middle East Eye, and Stratfor warn of diplomatic fallout if tensions linger, symbolizing deeper U.S.-Qatar bonds but questioning executive power and regional stability.
Wow, Ethan, this story's a real game changer, or should I say base defender. Thanks for unpacking all that detail.
My pleasure, Grace.
And now for our second story this morning. A dramatic reminder that Mother Nature can pull the rug out from under even the most luxurious lifestyles. We're talking about a massive coastal bluff collapse in Rancho Palos Verdes that has left multi-million-dollar mansions hanging on by a thread. Joining me to break it all down is our environment and safety reporter, Chloe. Chloe, good morning. What exactly happened out there on September 27th?
Good morning, Grace. Well, in the evening around 8:20, a huge crescent-shaped chunk of coastal bluff, about 300 to 400 feet wide, just gave way and tumbled 50 to 60 feet down to the ocean. According to reporting from Yahoo News and Men's Journal, it sent tons of earth, sandstone, topsoil, vegetation, and debris crashing onto the rocky shore below. This happened along Marguerite Drive near Palos Verdes Drive West, in that affluent spot about 25 miles south of Los Angeles. For folks who might not know, a coastal bluff is basically a steep cliff made of erodible sand, sediment, and rock along the shoreline, and these can be super unstable.
That sounds like a real cliffhanger for those homeowners. Were any lives at risk, or did it cause major damage to the properties?
Thankfully, no lives were lost, and no homes were made uninhabitable, Grace. ABC 7 Los Angeles footage showed residents calmly lounging by their pools just feet from the new drop-off. 4 luxury mansions were directly hit in their backyards, pools, terraces, and gardens, creating what one report called a gaping scar. But city manager Ara Marinian, quoted in the Los Angeles Times and Yahoo News from October 1st and 2nd, called it an isolated land subsidence, not a full landslide. No injuries, no structural damage, so no evacuations or red or yellow tagging of the houses. The Los Angeles County Fire Department and Sheriff's Department quickly cordoned off the area and closed an unauthorized trail locals used for beach access.
Subsidence, not landslide. Chloe, can you explain what that means for the average viewer tuning in over coffee?
Sure, subsidence is when the ground sinks or settles gradually, often due to soil movement. Unlike a landslide, which is a sudden slide of a whole mass. The city's geologist checked it out on September 28th and said it was static, meaning not actively moving right now. It's also not connected to the nearby Portuguese Bend landslide complex, that chronic slide 4 miles away that's been active since 1956 and has destroyed over 140 homes. Governor Gavin Newsom even declared a state of emergency there in 2024.
Ongoing monitoring makes sense in a place like California, with its 1,100-mile Pacific coastline always under threat. What's the bigger picture here with erosion and climate change?
Absolutely, Grace. This is part of a growing crisis, as the Los Angeles Times and the Guardian report from October 1st and 2nd. California's bluffs erode at 1 to 2 feet per year on average, with over 200 miles losing more than 5 feet annually. Natural causes like ocean waves undercutting the bases, heavy rain soaking the soil, earthquakes from nearby faults, and wind salt spray all play a role. But human stuff amps it up. Building heavy terraces and infinity pools on fragile edges, irrigation runoff that saturates the ground, and clearing vegetation for ocean views. Climate change is the real kicker. With rising sea levels boosting wave power, more extreme storms, and warmer temps stressing plants. Cal Coast Times projects erosion rates could triple by 2050 without action, shifting coastlines dozens of feet inland.
And the impacts, not just on those fancy homes, but the economy and environment too?
Big time. Economically, over 10,000 coastal properties worth $1.5 billion are at risk statewide, per Cal Coast Times. Property values could drop 25 to 40%, insurance premiums are up 30 to 50%, and many policies exclude earth movement, so folks need pricey add-ons. In Portuguese Bend, nearly 20 homes are red-tagged, utilities cut for hundreds, and there's a $42 million FEMA buyout program from October 2024 for 20 properties at 75% market value. Environmentally, the debris could smother kelp forests, rocky reefs, and marine life like sea urchins, lobsters, and rockfish in areas like Abalone Cove State Marine Conservation Area. NOAA and USGS clarify, though, no tropical corals here, it's temperate kelp and intertidal zones. Sediment plumes hurt water quality short-term, but might build new habitats if managed.
Regulatory gaps seem to be a hot topic. What's being done, and are officials downplaying the risks?
The Coastal Act sets erosion setbacks and requires geotechnical certifications, but enforcement varies with development pressure. Innovations like soil nail walls, native plants, drainage systems, and drone sensors have worked in places like Half Moon Bay. For this site, no seawall mandates yet, but owners must hire private engineers for inspections, and cleanup is on them since it's private land. No emergency permits or violations from the California Coastal Commission. But critics in geoengineer.org and LAS challenge the isolated static label, saying it's part of the expanding Portuguese Bend complex with slippery bentonite clay layers. Historical slides show static phases can reactivate, so caution is urged.
With similar collapses in Malibu, Pacific Palos Verdes, and Encinitas recently, averaging 25 to 40 bluff failures a year and over 2,600 evacuations in the last decade, this feels like a wake-up call. What's next for Californians?
It is, Grace. Calls for managed retreat, stricter codes, green incentives, and lessons from Australia or the UK. Mayor David Bradley pushed a construction ban in high-risk zones in July 2025. Equity's key too, so coastal wealth doesn't burden taxpayers. Monitoring continues, but the dialogue on sustainable living is just starting.
Chloe, you've given us a solid rundown on this bluffing disaster. Thanks for joining us this morning. Here are some other headlines. The world of primates has lost its primetime voice. Jane Goodall, the pioneering primatologist whose observations in Gombe turned our understanding of chimpanzees from black and white to technicolor, has died at 91. The Jane Goodall Institute says she passed from natural causes on October 1, 2025, while on a speaking tour in California. Beginning in 1960, in what is now Tanzania's Gombe Stream National Park, Goodall documented chimps making and using tools, navigating complex social structures, and expressing rich emotions. Proof that humanity's closest cousins weren't just ape approximations of us, but beings with their own cultures. After decades in the field, she took her mission global, logging nearly 300 days a year on the road to warn of deforestation and climate change. Her Jane Goodall Institute and Roots and Shoots youth program continue her legacy. As tributes from the United Nations to former U.S. presidents salute a life that was, in every sense, well, Goodall. On the legal beat, the high bench kept its powder dry and the Fed's independence unfed upon. The Supreme Court declined an emergency bid from the Trump administration to immediately remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. The justices issued a brief order. They'll hear arguments in January, leaving lower court blocks in place and Cook on the job. The administration has sought to oust the Biden appointee over mortgage fraud allegations she denies. It's a first-of-its-kind attempt to fire a sitting Fed governor, and this pause prevents the White House from gaining a policy-setting majority, keeping interest and interest rates a matter for the central bank and not the political bank shot. In the Isles of America, Walmart says it's giving additives the checkout treatment. The nation's largest grocer will strip synthetic colors and more than 30 other additives from about 1,000 U.S. private label products by January 2027. CEO John Furner says customers want simpler, more familiar ingredients. The change spans great value, market side, freshness guaranteed, and better goods, and dovetails with a federal push to phase out petroleum-based dyes. In a private label market posting record sales, the retail giant's reformulation could be a dyed-in-the-wool shift toward dying out, an ingredient list with less alphabet soup and more soup-to-nuts transparency for millions of carts and pantries. On the rocket docket, a disclosure with Gravity, newly unsealed testimony indicates SpaceX has taken direct investment from Chinese sources. Investor Iqbaljit Kalan testified that Chinese investors are, directly on the cap table, crossing a line from previously reported indirect stakes via offshore funds. For a firm building spy satellites in lofting national security payloads, that's not just space news, it's a national security launch alert. While no outright ban exists on such ownership, strict rules and scrutiny do. Expect boosters of oversight. Lawmakers have already demanded answers from the Pentagon and NASA about potential conflicts and any obfuscation of foreign stakes. Ground control to major disclosure. Regulators, you have ignition. And in the Atlantic, a blow-by-blow that spared lives but not lines. Hurricane Imelda clipped Bermuda as a Category 2 and then headed east, leaving more than 17,000 without power and trees down, but no reported injuries. Winds peaked near 100 miles per hour as the core passed Wednesday night. By early Thursday, Imelda had eased to Category 1 with 85-mile-per-hour winds, about 170 miles east-northeast of the island. Schools, government offices, and the airport closed preemptively, with 100 soldiers deployed to bolster shelters and infrastructure. National Security Minister Michael Weeks urged residents to stay sheltered as crews assessed damage. For an island of insurers and stringent building codes, Imelda was a real policy test. Proof that preparedness isn't just a line item, it's a lifeline. A tropical storm warning remained, even as the hurricane warning was dropped. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.